And welcome everybody to this day of the fair. It's really nice to know that everybody is listening. By the way, I know that my accent is a little bit strong, a little bit strange. It's an accent of Manchester, so I think there will be some space for you to ask any questions at the end. If there was anything that you didn't understand, please do feel free to ask it at the end of the session. So my name is Chris Gibson. I am the Peru country manager at the University of Manchester, and that means that it's my job to support students from Peru who are interested in studying at Manchester and in the UK. So the first question is, why would you study in the UK? And there are lots of different reasons to come and study in my country. Number one, there are lots of leading universities. So the University of Manchester is really highly ranked, very well respected. The UK is also home to universities like Oxford and Cambridge, the universities of Leeds and Sheffield and Liverpool, various universities in London, all amazing world-leading universities. So there's a within the UK. UK education is globally recognized as being of a very, very high standard. So when you go on to get a job, if you've been educated in the UK, that gives you a kind of level of quality to your education, which is fantastic. There's a very wide range of subject areas that you can study in the UK at all of those universities, from the usual suspects like engineering and mathematics, to things like history, art history, politics, a real wide range of subjects. So you can study more or less anything in the UK. Our degree courses are shorter than in other parts of the world, but just as good. So, for example, our average master's course is just 1 year in duration, okay, as opposed to 2 years, for example, in the United States. There is a new graduate immigration route visa, which allows anybody who completes a degree. So after you graduate, it allows you to remain in the UK for up to 2 years to work or to look for work. So once you graduate, you can stay in the UK for up to 2 years, which is really nice. We have very high completion rates. It's very unusual for somebody to begin a degree and completely fail to achieve anything at the end. Almost everybody gets some kind of classification. And last but not least, the UK has a really diverse culture. So we have food from all over the world. We've got a history of music, football, areas of natural beauty, all within a few hours on the train in the whole of the UK. So it's a really exciting country to come and study in. Talking about the University of Manchester, our entry requirements for postgraduate courses are generally for a Peruvian bachelor's. Now that can be a bachiller or a licenciado, it doesn't matter, with a minimum overall score, so a minimum promedio of 15 out of 20. So that's kind of the minimum grade that you need in your bachelor's to get into a master's or a PhD at the University of Manchester. Some courses require specific in your background. So for example, to study computer science at Manchester as a master's, you must already have a bachelor's in computer science, for example. But other areas are more flexible. So for business, for example, you can go into a master's in business from lots of different areas. So it's worth checking on the university website the exact requirements for your course. Okay. So you need your bachelor's and also an English language test. Now, the most common English language tests are IELTS or TOEFL. And the example I've given here is an IELTS score. So depending which course you would like to study at Manchester, you might need somewhere between 7.5 overall down to 6.5 overall in the IELTS. So like I said, each course has its own specific requirements, but these are the general entry requirements that you would need to get into Manchester as a student from Peru. Okay. So Manchester, where is Manchester? Manchester is located right in the centre of the UK. It's in the northwest of England, which is the kind of white outlined part there, the biggest part. It is 2 hours away from London by fast train link, so you can see London down in the southeast. It has its own international airport, so it's really easy to access Manchester from anywhere in the world. And also on the flip side, to use Manchester Airport to explore the rest of Europe, for example, when you study in the UK. And Manchester is one of the biggest cities in the UK. So it has a kind of big city feel, and it's very well connected to the rest of the UK and the rest of Europe and the world. Manchester is an original and modern city. It was the place where the UK's Industrial Revolution began. It was also the place where the UK's women's rights movement, the suffragette movement, began. It has a really long history, and you can see that in the architecture. You can see old Victorian mills and warehouses and factories that have now been converted. So it's now a post-industrial city. It's not industrial anymore. And those kind of factories and mills have been converted into independent businesses, shops, coffee shops, music venues, record stores, all kinds of stuff, right? So it's a really vibrant, interesting place. And Manchester is also super diverse. So the University of Manchester has about 40,000 students in total. And of those students, about 13,000 are international students. So they're not from the UK. And those students come from over 180 different countries. So we have students here from all over the world, from East Asia, from the Middle East, from North America, from Latin America, absolutely everywhere, right? And the city is just the same. We have big populations from China and Hong Kong and Taiwan. We have a small, tight-knit Latin community as well. And we have a big South Asian community from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. And you can see that in the food, actually. There's lots of really amazing, authentic food from all around the world available in the city of Manchester. So it's this really exciting melting pot of cultures. We also have a long history of contribution to UK culture through music. So if you're interested in indie music from the 1980s and 90s, you might know bands like The Smiths, Oasis, The Stone Roses, New Order, Joy Division, more recently bands like The 1975. All of those artists came out of Manchester and the surrounding areas. So it has a really vibrant culture and art scene. And also, of course, it wouldn't be a Manchester presentation if I didn't mention the two big football teams, Manchester United and Manchester City, both stadiums within easy reach of the campus, and sometimes offering discounted tickets for students too. Okay. So to live in this exciting, diverse melting pot of a city, we estimate that the average postgraduate student doing a 1-year master will spend on everything living related. So that is accommodation, food, textbooks, mobile phone bills, socializing, everything, just under £14,000 for 1 full year. Okay. So you can see there it's £13,955 per year. That's what we estimate it costs to live in Manchester. And to give you an idea, £1 right now is worth around about 4 soles. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the cost of living in Manchester. Now, the University of Manchester is kind of unique. Normally, UK universities will either be campus-based with one single campus, which might be far away from anything else, but everything is on the one campus, or city-based, like the London universities, where they have lots of buildings dotted around the city centre, but no one campus. So you might have to travel across the city to get from class to class. Manchester is both. So we have one single campus. You can see that outlined here in white. All of the buildings are on that campus. It's all within about 10-15 minutes walk of each other. And that is right next to the city centre. So the nucleus of the city centre is outlined there in yellow. And you can walk from the middle of the campus into the middle of the city in about 15 minutes. So that's on foot, okay? And also the road up the middle Oxford Road is one of the busiest bus routes in Europe. So there are lots and lots of buses that will take you in about 5 to 7 minutes from the university campus into the city. So the great thing about Manchester is that it has all of these students, all of these cultures, a big, big city feel, but it's all contained within one small kind of area. So from one side of the city centre in yellow to the other, you can walk in about 45 minutes. So everything is very accessible in Manchester, and that's one of the best things about the university, in my opinion. So this is our campus from above as well. You can see Oxford Road from a different angle. Over the past 10 years, we've had about £2 billion worth of investment in our campus. That's gone into facilities, a new business school, a new engineering development as well. So lots of different stuff, and also into the study facilities. So our students have directly benefited from that £2 billion of investment. Now, this is the probably my favorite part of the university. It's the oldest part. It's the old quadrangle. And the kind of Harry Potter looking building in the middle there, that's the oldest part of the university, called the Whitworth Hall. It was built in 1824. And then right next to that is the Alan Gilbert Learning Commons, the kind of sleek glass building. So that was built with part of that £2 billion investment. It's a state-of-the-art study space for our students. And it shows you one of the best things about Manchester, which is that the historic heritage architecture and the new modern architecture coexist right next to each other. And that makes it a really exciting place to live and study. So as a university, we're obviously known around the world for our world-class research. We pride ourselves on providing an outstanding learning and student experience. And also we are one of the only universities to have a central commitment to social responsibility. So we encourage our students and staff to give back to the community in Manchester and to the world through schemes to tackle homelessness, through schemes to reduce single-use plastics on our campus, all kinds of stuff around sustainability and social responsibility. So Manchester kind of aims to give back not just to the students, but also to the wider community. The university has a really long history of innovations and world firsts. Some really amazing inventions and innovations happened here. So I'll pick a couple from this slide. Number one, the scientist Ernest Rutherford first split the atom. So he did the research that went into the splitting of the atom, effectively inventing or kind of discovering nuclear fusion for the fission, for the first time. Really important discovery. Point number three, the world's first programmable computer was invented at the University of Manchester. So modern computer science in debt in many ways to Manchester. And on the social side, Christabel Pankhurst, who was a key figure in the women's rights movement, she was the first woman to graduate from the university in law. But under the laws of the time, she was not allowed to practice as a lawyer. And so that led her into her role as an activist in the women's rights movement. And ultimately, she was part of the movement which allowed women to vote finally in the UK, right? So lots of really important social and scientific innovations and world firsts happening all the time. And right up to the present day, when Andrei Guilhem and Kostya Novoselov isolated the new material graphene for the first time. Now, Kostya and Andrei won Nobel Prizes for their work, and they still work at the university. So if you work in their department, there's a very real possibility that you could be taught by an actual Nobel Prize winner, which is amazing. And the University of Manchester has produced 25 Nobel Prize winners amongst its students and staff throughout its history. So I mentioned at the beginning a little bit about what you can study at Manchester. This is not a full list. This is just an example, but you can study anything that falls within our three faculties of humanities, which contains things like business, social sciences, politics, international relations, law as well, development studies, international development, urban planning, and that kind of thing. So lots of options in humanities. Science and engineering, you've got your classical sciences, physics, maths, chemistry, biology, also also engineering, some mechanical, aerospace, civil engineering, lots of different options there. And then the final faculty is biology, medicine, and health, where you can study biosciences, biomedical sciences, all kinds of stuff related to biology, medical sciences. Okay, so anything that falls in those three areas, you can study at Manchester. The only things that we don't offer are kind of new media type courses. So for example, journalism we don't offer, although you can go into a career in journalism having studied history or politics, for example. We don't offer things like culinary arts, and we don't offer practical arts programs like graphic design or interior design. But aside from that, pretty much any subject you can think of, you'll probably be able to study at Manchester. Now, it wouldn't be a university presentation if I didn't mention our ranking. Right now, the University of Manchester is ranked as the 27th best university in the world by the QS World Rankings and the 6th best university in the UK. So the only universities ahead of us are, for example, Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, LSE, those kind of universities. So Manchester is up there in the top 10 in the UK with those really prestigious universities, and comfortably within the top 30 and the top 50 in the world. This all means that 94% of our graduates go on to work or further study within 6 months, and we are the #1 most targeted university by top employers in the UK. So that means that top employers look out for our graduates. They actively look for Manchester graduates, and our graduates have gone on to work in a really wide range of areas. So here you can see automotive companies like Rolls-Royce, Jaguar, broadcasting like the British BBC. You've got tech like Apple, accounting, Balfour Beatty, more tech, IBM. So a really wide range of top employers that are looking out for Manchester graduates there. Okay. So I've talked a bit about our research, and if you're not interested in research, that's okay. The research will still benefit you because it means that your tutors are at the forefront of your field. They often have written the text.
Van a estar a la vanguardia de su campo de estudios, y aquí el staff también tiene un con la industria, que además también la investigación trae más beneficios e inversiones, y eso lo ponemos en nuestras diferentes instalaciones y en los estudiantes. Y hablando sobre Perú, actualmente tenemos 86 estudiantes en Perú, y ellos son parte de la comunidad de 400 latinoamericanos que estudian en la universidad, desde Perú, Chile, Colombia, incluso Uruguay, Paraguay. Así que es una comunidad latina bastante diversa, y ellos están en la Sociedad Latinoamericana de la Universidad de Manchester. Entonces, por ejemplo, ellos hacen eventos sociales, tienen un grupo de WhatsApp, organizan de repente, por ejemplo, viajes o hacen parrilladas. Esto es entre los estudiantes latinoamericanos. Y también tienen una página de Facebook, así que ustedes pueden escribirles. Entonces deberían buscar sobre esta sociedad que se llama UOM, Latin American Society, y se les va a responder por algún estudiante de Manchester que es latino. Y lo último que quería mencionar, y esta es la última presentación, es sobre la vivienda. Entonces los estudiantes siempre nos preguntan si tenemos viviendas. Sí, tenemos 22 edificios, los llamamos halls o pabellones, en el campus de la universidad, y están a una distancia bastante corta del campus. Hay 8,000 habitaciones en el campus. Ofrecemos definitivamente una habitación para todos nuestros estudiantes internacionales. Les garantizamos hay diferentes opciones para diferentes lugares. También hay mucho apoyo, también hay instalaciones deportivas, diferentes cosas en estos edificios. Así que definitivamente hay una vivienda y alojamiento. Y esta es mi última parte. Como les dije, mi nombre es Chris Gibson y yo soy el gerente para el país de Perú. Ahí está mi correo electrónico si ustedes quieren escribirme y me quieren hacer cualquier pregunta. Así que pueden estar en contacto conmigo o también con los colegas de Pronabec que han organizado este evento el día de hoy. En este punto voy a dejar de hablar y voy a ver si hay preguntas. Gracias.